After 5 months that felt more like 5 years, it's finally happening. The snow is actually melting. I can see the sun, and I can go outside without putting on 8 layers. The polar vortex is leaving us alone. For most of the northern part of the country, I think the end of this horrible winter probably feels a bit like the end of a long drought. For the first time since last November, there's actual, natural, unfrozen water that doesn't come from a faucet. It's like the world is waking up again. This winter reminded me a bit of my experience in Israel a couple years ago. Israel has a water problem. Water is a scarce commodity. Even the water they do have isn't usually life-giving. The Dead Sea is so salty that it basically can't support any life at all, hence the name. Before the advent of modern plumbing, the ancient Israelites had to spend a lot of time thinking about water. Their water came from 3 sources. The first and most common was a well. This was dug deep in the ground, all the way down to the fresh water table. You could drink water from a well, but it was full of silt and mud. It wasn't exactly refreshing. The second source was a cistern. This was a huge water storage container that was typically cut out of an underground cave. A cistern collected rainwater, which would then sit stagnant until it was used. Less mud and silt, but as you can imagine, stagnant can be a bit gross. For the ancient Israelites, the best source of water was a stream of living water. These are moving streams that bubble up from under the ground and find their way to the surface. When they do, they offer the most refreshing and life-giving water a person can drink. When I was in Israel, I got to experience living water firsthand. We had hiked in the wilderness for over 8 hours. Our guide then led us to Engedi, where the water trickled to the surface and then grew into a waterfall. There were pools of water with plants growing all around them. After spending a full day in the absurdly hot wilderness, we all immediately jumped into the stream and rolled around in the water. We couldn't get enough. I immediately thought of the book of Ezekiel, where a river is described. This river begins as a trickle in the temple of God and flows east into the wilderness. As it flows, it builds in strength and depth until it finally reaches the salty Dead Sea over 18 miles away. And wherever it flows, this river brings life. It is obviously a stream of living water. Obviously, Ezekiel's vision is about more than just quenching a physical thirst. God is presenting a powerful image of His amazing offer to quench our spiritual thirst, to make us truly alive through His resurrection power. That sounds pretty great, doesn't it? Sounds like something everyone should want. If this is the gospel message, it should be totally irresistible. But look around you. Look at your church. Look at the church as a whole. Look at the current state of Christianity. Does it look like a church or a faith or a movement with an irresistible gospel? Does it look like we're offering living water? Just this past weekend, I was reminded again that so many people, especially young people, are choosing to simply walk away from the church. They all have their own reasons, but most of them boil down to this: leaving the church seems more life-giving than staying does. And that makes me sad. Most of all, because I can see their point. There's not much that's life-giving about the religion we present on Sundays. To be frank, I'm not sure we're offering living water at all. I'm reminded of this verse from Jeremiah. My people have committed 2 sins. They have forsaken me, the spring of living water, and have dug their own cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot hold water. As painful as it is to admit, I think that's what we've done. We've forsaken the living water, and instead, we dig our own stagnant, broken cisterns. And that's what we've been offering the world. I thought a lot about what the path forward looks like. I've struggled with it. I know I don't have perfect answers for all of my friends who have left the church, but I think there's a lot of wisdom, and maybe even the beginning of an answer, in this passage from Oswald Chambers. Christ is claiming the ability to satisfy the deepest need of the human heart, yet we are strangely reluctant to come directly to Him. We will attend ceremonies and observe sacraments. We will follow men and congregate in meetings. We will frequent camps and conventions. We will listen to priests and preachers, anything, it would seem, except come personally and alone into the presence of Christ. But He is absolutely intolerant. He will quench our spiritual thirst personally, but not by proxy. So to the church, we need to do better. We need to recognize and tear down our cisterns. We need to reject that worthless, stagnant water. Maybe we need to rethink our ceremonies and sacraments, our meetings and camps and conventions, even our sermons. We need to find a way to reconnect to God's living water and His resurrection life. We need to offer the world something real and thirst-quenching and irresistible. And to those who have left the church or who want to leave the church or who have been hurt by the man-made religion that's so often presented in the church, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the mistakes we've made and for the lesser, life-stealing gospel we've often presented. But I want to invite you back, not to religion or even to church, not to another meeting and not to listen to another sermon. I want to invite you back to this real, life-giving stream of living water, back to this deep connection with a God who will quench your spiritual thirst, back to the personal, living presence of Christ. And if you come back, I want to encourage you to jump in all the way. Roll around in that stream. Soak it in. Let it wash you and renew you and heal you. Connect deeply with the God who is the source of living water and allow Him to carry you to places you are incapable of taking yourself.